a realtor down here. And what she's talking about is moving out of our old paradigm, our old earth, and moving into the new root race. And that's what the temples were designed to do, is to help accomplish that at that particular time in history. But today we have some language that's not always the same as what they had in Edgar Cayce's time, and language that was not necessarily the language they used prior to that, like in the ancient times. So this is more of today's language, okay, of how you can do it today. And so I'm also a poet, and I wrote this in 1996, and I want to share this with you. My new world. Come with me to my new world, limitless eternal depths of joy. Carrying tears, open my heart to all. We're all unique in universal unity. Affection smothers faithful fears. Peacefully abundance overwhelms. Humor, fun, rose in freedom. An angelic life in loving serenity, sovereignty. Patience walks this way with me. Trustful consciousness crowns contentment. Closeness warms this world at summer. Rapture removes my emptiness forevermore. And that's where we're going with the new root race. And the planet at this point in time has already gone into fifth dimension. The book I wrote after the poetry book was called The Real Meaning of 2012, which talked about the photon belt. The Earth has been going through cycles as it goes in its orbit, and the Mayan calendar was one of the cycles, and of course we completed the Mayan calendar. I actually saw the original one in Mexico with John Van Auken. Cool deal. And so it was time for a new Earth to come into being, and all the work that we've been talking about, especially in this program, is moving out of the old mindset. And of course, Cayce said mind is the builder. So that's what this program's about, is to help you not only move out of your old mind, but the mental and the emotional also will bring you into the spiritual, and the physical is the result. So when you change your inner self, the outer self will manifest. So life is an inside job. And sometimes it's not always fun when things pop in that we need to turn to love in all problems and indications of things that show up that we need to release and do that replacement. But, you know, and as we go through this process, we move into a higher consciousness. And that's what do you have an extra one there? That's what the there's no extra?
Yeah.
That's all right, you do have an extra. One's fine. But this stairway to heaven, you need one? Thank you. All right, stairway to heaven is a diagram that I didn't put it together. I was inspired because I found something similar. And somebody said, you can't use that, it's copyrighted. So I said to God, okay, what am I going to do to this? A version of this is in a couple of my books. And I says, what am I going to do? Because that's the information I want to use. So I was told to do this, make it out as a stairway. And as we go through our releasing what we don't want from our old past experiences, and that means not just this life, but past lives. So you're not clearing out just what's happened in this current lifetime. In my case, I was going from one room to another one day, and I felt the energy go plop, 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 plop. And the voice said, you're going to clean out all the anger in the family generationally. It was my job to do that, which I have worked on. Okay, so as you go up the stairs, the numbers at the end are the vibrations of that particular emotional place that you're at. So as we go up the stairs, our vibrations are changing. And Cayce said, and I have a series of quotes by him today. Cayce said, the lowest form of electrical vibration is the basis of life. And I have a whole series of quotes. Electricity or vibration is the same energy, same power we call God. Not that God is an electric light or an electric machine, but vibration that is creative is the same energy as life itself. And that's what we're trying to move into. So we are going to be able to be in the new world, because like attracts like, and the planet has moved into fifth dimension emotionally because of it being in the photon belt. The planet is there. Are we? And that's the question. We have to match that energy. We're the micro to the macro. The planet's the macro, and we're the micro. And every time we change, guess what? The planet's energy and consciousness changes too. So every time you're feeling a little better this morning, you just changed a lot more than you realized. And that's how you create your life. He also said, this is my favorite one, for without passing through each and every stage of development, I hated that, there is not the correct vibration to come one with the Creator. And what I've discovered is that's what the stairway is about. Each time I've had experiences that were negative, abusive, I've almost died 13 times, okay? And all of these situations, actually, we think of them as a medical problem. We think of them as somebody did it to me, or a disaster, or, we fight it and we don't accept it. And I had a stroke 2 years ago. And I finally am learning when you learn the lesson, you don't have to go and repeat it. So I'm in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and I said out loud in the ambulance, I said, God, what's the lesson in this one? And I walked out of the hospital 8 hours later, passing all the CAT scan and other tests they gave me without any mental problems. And I can still write. God can still have me writing books. I did have a leg wound, which was serious. I almost lost my right leg. The airbag did a brutal cut right into my leg in 5 places. And I took 2 months of antibiotics just to get the infection down so they could heal it. And the doctor said if I'd been diabetic, I wouldn't have saved it. So just because good things can happen, they're not always what you think they're going to be. And so here I am limping around, and part of that's arthritis, and that's another lesson I'm having to learn. And every time we go through these lessons, they're opportunities to turn to God and find forgiveness and compassion, or whatever way the love that needs to be sent to that situation or person. So instead of reacting and staying the victim, they did it to me, everything comes from what I'm projecting out. We create our lives. So what am I projecting out? Well, I won't go through all the details of my life because I was raised in a lot of dysfunction, mental illness and addictions and all kinds of abuse. So all of those were lessons I needed for my spiritual growth. So they weren't bad. At the time, I thought they were horrible. And it's very easy to point the finger out at the other person. If they just straightened up, I'd be fine. But guess what? There's 3 fingers pointing back. So nowadays, when something comes back that I don't particularly appreciate, I say, okay, God, what am I sending out this time? Because we have choice. And I can choose to send love to the situation or not, or stay a victim. And then I stay powerless, and then it's poor me, and I don't choose to be that victim anymore. I have literally outgrown domestic violence and mental illness, been declared sane. We don't have to stay in the labels. Can you believe that? You don't have to act out the box they tell you you're supposed to be in. And fortunately, in my case, being kind of a very shut down child from the age of 3 until I got into my 50s, I was told, nice little girls don't get angry, so I never got angry. I didn't know you were supposed to get angry. I'm a nice little girl. And kids are seen and not heard, so I never had a voice. And so all these things that I've had to overcome have actually been blessings today, because I had to learn to do these things, and in doing them, I'm no longer that victim. I've outgrown the past lessons of growing into maturity is what it amounts to. So you can either stay that victim and react from fear, or you can address it and respond with love and move on. And your recovery, it doesn't mean that the problems are going to go away. It means you get through it quicker and faster and move beyond it. So it means you've addressed it and you haven't buried it or stuffed it away or pretend. See, in the 40s there was I'm turning 85 this month, so in the 40s there was a radio show called Let's Pretend. I'm the great pretender. Everything's fine at my house, but I don't bring you home because I don't want you to see the domestic violence going on. But everything's fine. He also has this, so we have to go through all these stages. It's basically growing up into maturity. And when you see the lesson in it, you grow another step up this stairway towards where we're actually trying to return to our source of where we started in the first place. Vibration is movement. Movement is activity of a positive and negative force. So everything is vibration. And negative, if you're looking at cause and effect, if you have a negative cause, you're going to get a poor result. I had to learn how to deal with domestic violence from a positive point of view. At this point, my husband died ex-husband died 7 years ago. But today I have compassion. He tried to kill me several times, and I tried suicide several times to get out of the mess. I have compassion today. I forgave him. He played the perfect part that I needed to learn how to forgive and have compassion. I know how bad his childhood was. And he was acting out from his childhood, but he agreed to, we all know about, this is part of the seals, I think. We all know that we are going to have lessons to grow, and these are the lessons, you know. And they show up in ways that maybe we weren't familiar with because if we I do past life regressions. If we haven't had some way of looking back and saying, oh, this came from such and such a situation, then I can, that's when Henry Boulder was doing past lives. He had us make a chart of the different past lives, and you could see each past life was just another version of the prior one, and it had a sequence line so that you could see if you were growing or not. From, did you do it better this time than you did last time? And where was your progress? So all these things are not necessarily new today. We've had them, I know where because of I can meditate and I know my past lives for the most part. And I know where it came from today. And I know what the solution is today, and I've worked on it. I'm no longer that little 3-year-old. Thank goodness. So it can be positive or negative, and it's my choice, in my case, to make it positive because I want the effect that the positive brings. What you share and care and help others with and learn from and pass on to help others, you grow, and it's God is energy and expansion. And when you're sharing wonderful experiences and you say, oh, I know, I can understand what's going on with you, or have sympathy for somebody that's having a difficult time. Somebody just showed up and a friend, and she had a very close friend die, you know, went into tears, and she told me about the story of why this person was so close to her. And I had lots of sympathy, lots of compassion, because I'd had a similar situation. And I could help her with that. And he also said, only when they become spiritual are they only positive. So that's our goal. When all the vibrations that we have and we've responded in love, as we go up that stairway, then we actually do become spiritual rather than what we were before, which was fear-based. So instead of being a fear-based person, we are growing into being a love-based person. And low vibrations are like the tuba in the band or the bass viol, the low vibrations. keep us in fear. And some people call it edging God out if you're in your ego up here. My spiritual teacher, Linda Schiller-Hanna, has given presentations like you are today. She had me help her with one of the presentations. And she's my spiritual teacher, and she said, the spiritual trip is going from your head to your heart, 18 inches, but that's the trip. So we're moving from out of our heads into our hearts, and there's different terms for that vibration, and it vibrates a little different, so people call it a different word, but it's all fear. It's all fear-based. Your ego, guilt, shame. Churches call it devil and Satan. If you're coming from judgment or criticism, all of that is very low vibrations. And as you move up that stairway, as I've diagrammed, and you move, each time you release something that you need to release, anything negative emotions or belief systems, situations that aren't beneficial to you, anything that is blocking the love of God manifesting and actually happening and blooming in your life, the more you get rid of, the more God, the better it gets, believe me. Let go and let God take care of it. And as you move through the low vibrations into the higher vibrations, people call it love, light, joy, serenity, peace. It doesn't really matter what the term is, because vibrations are energy, and you can label it anything that works for you. So, and you come into compassion and joy. That's actually called Christ consciousness. When you outgrow your judgment, see, Christ consciousness was no judgment, no criticism or condemnation. And so you're actually coming into pure love. Jesus was Cayce says he's our pattern. So we're just following in his footprints of how do we become Christ conscious. Now don't let the word Christ upset you or confuse you or mystify you. In my research, what I found out is the word Christ is a label for somebody who has matured. And 2,000 years ago when they wrote the Bible, or whenever they didn't understand vibrations, and they didn't understand how all of this worked, so they called it Christ. So he was Jesus Christ, the Christ. He wasn't Christ Jesus, he was. And actually at that time, apparently, when some research I did, there were lots of people that were Christed at that time. And when you're coming from unconditional love, you've grown up, you've matured, and all. And the ascension is basically, and that's why I wanted to use the board here, you get rid of all these lower, where you're separated from God, you come into oneness, and you're no longer living this life anymore. That's the new world. You will not have fear. And you will be living this on a daily basis. And of course we keep continuing. This isn't the end of the trip. Spiritually there's no end. But we'll keep continuing, but with new lessons. And they won't be the same. If you learn the lessons in this lifetime, you don't have to continue them. That's the, yay! You've grown, you've graduated. We really don't graduate, but you can say there's a plateau where you can move on into a new world of love and eternal love, and that is who we are. Because we are the light. There's a light inside our heart, and it's in our soul. Your soul is a piece of God, P-I-E-C-E. You see how language gets twisted around so people don't understand what they're really doing when they talk about the light of God, or when they say a piece of God, most people think of it as quiet and calm instead of the God is within.
So how can you be separated from it?
By fear.
You're a piece of
anything negative. And that tomorrow we'll do
part
it.
of you. You can't be separate from you.
But you aren't you. You are love. This is an illusion. Reality is love. And if it isn't loving, it's not real. And you are a real...
You can't be separated.
What?
You really can't be separated from it.
We're not supposed to be separate from the love of God.
No, we're not.
That's right. That's what this is about. Down here you are. The more you grow into God consciousness, the less separate you are. It's like a seesaw. The negative pulls it down, the love brings it back up so that you're even. So all the negativity has to go. And what happens is that we've been living in the past and reacting from all the past situations. So we have been not living in reality. Yes?
So to go back to the question at hand, if I understand what you're saying, perhaps there's the higher self and the lower self. It's all one self. The higher self would be the Christ consciousness within us,
Exactly.
piece of Christ. The lower
P-I-E-C-E.
right, P-I-E-C-E, and then the lower aspects or vibrations is where the fear, the anger, the self-loathing,
The ego.
Okay.
It all comes from ego.
It all comes from ego. And so all I'm saying is there's a scale based on the ladder of low vibration to high vibration. We all have the Christ aspect within us. We probably don't even notice it when we're operating at that lower vibration, so we miss it. And then all of a sudden, as we climb steps, we go, oh, what's that? And then you start to
It was
become...
always there.
Right,
Yeah,
it's always
it's
there,
always
but
there.
you're masking it.
But it doesn't
Yeah.
have to stay there forever, and that's where a lot of people don't realize we don't have to live in that old life anymore that caused all our difficulties. We are outgrowing it. We are growing into maturity instead of staying little children. I have a story. There's the mother that tells her little boy it's nighttime and you got to go to bed. So she tucks him in, turns the light out, leaves the room. A few minutes later, Mommy, Mommy, there's a boogeyman in my bedroom. Mommy comes back, turns on the light. There's no boogeyman. We're turning on the light. There's no boogeyman. If you read my book, The Spark of Truth, at Amazon, it explains how religion twisted all that around on us. There is no boogeyman. There never was. They use it to control and manipulate the population. Anytime people are wanting to control and want power, they keep them in fear. And then you look for the government to save you, or you look for a savior to save you. You look outside for your husband to save you. You know, in my case, I got married in domestic violence. For my husband that was supposed to save me from my mother and my stepdad and all that mess that I was in. So if you're looking outside for someone to save you, it's inside. You don't have to look anywhere. You already have the power. You've been giving it away as a victim and playing the part that you don't. We've been brainwashed to feel we don't have power, but we aren't powerless. We have the power of God within us. And if I'm getting to the point in my life where I can literally see where God vibrated this into my life or brought this or brought that, and just because of how I was thinking, and that showed up. In fact, today, just a minute ago, there wasn't any marker. And I planned on using the blackboard. Well, in my teaching days, they were black. And so all of a sudden, I didn't, for me, this was a big victory. I didn't overreact. But, you know, I don't have the diagram on paper. I was going to use the board because I wanted to erase this and show you that's not going to continue. And so I said, God, how am I going to get hold of Victor? And I got up, I turned around, and he was sitting behind me because I knew that's how I was going to get a black marker that worked. So we can change our mind that quick and create what we really need. So we've been taught to live in the past and rely on others instead of the God within. And we have also been taught to worry about what if my mother was born and my dad they came from the Great Depression. And you didn't spend a penny and money was huge. I could tell you all kinds of funny stories about that in my life. So the fear of financial insecurity was big time, and that was one of the reasons I married my husband, because even though I had a job, I didn't think I could cover bills on my own as a teacher, and I had a couple kids by then. And so I stayed in domestic violence because of financial fear. And you know what, today? He is now deceased. And he died in a very financial problems I won't go into, and I'm paying all my bills, and I'm getting along fine. And it was fear. Fear kept me in a place that really caused, I shouldn't be standing here. It's by the grace of God, literally. I could tell you some stories how God literally came in and stopped time and stopped him from doing what he was doing. So we are meant to live in the now. All there is right now. And if 5 minutes ago is past, it's history. 2 minutes isn't even here yet. What you are doing right now will be within the 2 minutes, because it moves, it just expands and expands. And in the now, there is no future. It's really, and terrifically, it's just now. It's all, there's no time, if you know about that part of it. This is all part of quantum physics in a way, diluted, you might say. So if we live in a plus cause, we will get positive results. It's the way the universe works. So I'd rather today say, okay, God, what is the most positive, what's the most beneficial and beneficent outcome for this today? Please bring that most beneficent and benevolent outcome for today. And I get really better outcomes than if I'm trying to run the show. So what I want you to do Matt, can you pass out another handout for people? Fine. And take a look on one side. It says resentment, demand, and appreciate. And when I ended up, because I was, I literally cried out one of the times he was trying to kill me. I literally cried out, God, please tell me I really don't want to die. That's how my spiritual change came. God answered, I'm still alive. I turn 85 next week. And that was 39 years ago. So God answered prayer, believe me. I remember, living proof. So I had lots of resentments from growing up in my childhood and marriage, obviously. Okay. So one of the tools I found early in my changing was that I had to get rid of my resentments. Now, resentments are a form of anger. Oh, do you want to move out of this now?
There's two shades back here. Shades for you.
I just have to slide over one, and it'll move that way. Slide over. Thank you.
Well, it looked very uncomfortable.
Well, I can kind of move.
Well, I don't want you that uncomfortable. Okay, so I found out that I grew up when you weren't supposed to be angry. So what's a resentment? That was a whole new word to me at the time. And I found out it's a form of being angry, okay? So I was to list my resentments. And in my case, Mother being mentally ill, she never hugged me and she never said, I love you. I was one angry child. You know, I felt like an orphan. I saw myself like the little match girl, standing outside in the cold, winter, snowy, icy winter day, looking through the window at all the happy people inside celebrating and having a good time and laughing and joking around. And I didn't fit in, you know, I just didn't fit in. So I had this resentment about my mother. I demanded that she love me. She couldn't do it. That really wasn't the role she was meant to play in my life. So this took a long, this did not happen overnight. But today I can appreciate how it worked out, and I see the pattern and what I learned from it. She lived through me and gave me all the things that she wanted because she had a worse childhood than I did. So she put me in dancing. You talked about dancing this morning. She put me in music lessons. She got me into college. She got me into social groups because I didn't know how to socialize. I'm 3 years old and I don't have a voice, and I'm a scared little girl, and I'm just, that's what I was. So she put me into these situations, and because of that, that's who I am today. I became a teacher, and I'm still teaching. and one thing leads to another. And I have great compassion for her because she did more for me than what she ever got, and that she was even able to pull it off. That she was able to stand up to, my stepdad was as mentally ill or more than she was, I took time to realize. And she was able to stand up to him and say that I am going to use my, in those days, support money for going for college. And he wasn't going to get it. And she stood up to this angry man and made sure that I got to college. So, we don't always understand why these things are happening. And a little side note on that, my real dad and mom showed up in a meditation one day. And they were arm in arm with each other. I'd never seen them that way. They fought every night. I couldn't trust them because they were never there for me. And they showed up in my meditation happy. I never saw them happy. I didn't bring people home because my house was not a happy home. And they said they wanted to be my parents. Of course, we pick our parents, but they wanted to be my parents. And God told them they had to keep their hands behind their back for all the abuse I was going to be going through because those were the lessons I needed for my spiritual growth. They played their part perfectly. I appreciate, I wouldn't be who I am today if that hadn't happened. That's just one of the aspects of how when you come to understand a bigger picture, not that little kid that's scared that doesn't know how to do life and did it all the wrong way. So when you list out your resentments and then you make, what are you demanding from them? And maybe it wasn't meant to be that way. Maybe it's your childish selfishness or insecurity or whatever that's saying, well, if they just did this and I'd be happy. I'm willing to tell you today, nobody can make you happy. It's an inside job. It is your choice to be as happy. I mean, I'm also in a group for codependent people, and I had to learn that if my husband was upset, it had nothing to do with me. But I thought if I keep the waters calm and level and whatever, then if he's happy, I can be happy. And I had to learn it's my job to make me happy and to live what's right for me. How he handles it is, well, of course, we got divorced. He was too mentally ill to get well, sadly. So the point is, all these lessons are for me. And whoever is out there is playing their part. Shakespeare was right. All the life is a play. Everybody's acting out a play, and they're playing their part. And in Seattle, there's a theater, it's Act 1. It's a circular theater, and you look down on the stage. And in my meditation, I found myself standing up, clapping, and they're on the stage taking their bows. And I said, you played your parts perfectly. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And they did. So whenever you're angry, it's because they aren't doing what you want them to do. They didn't do it your way. Life ain't going the way you figure it should be going. Guess what? It's going just like it's supposed to. So I have to get out of my resentment because I'm not running the show. I'm having to deal with it on life's terms. And each time those things come up, how am I going to resolve it with loving resolution? Let me forgive it. And many times when I pray for these people, you pray for what you want and send it to them. Because guess what? What goes around comes around. So what you want, you pray and you send to the person. And that's when I started coming into compassion. So it works very well. And in the future, there is no future. In 2 minutes, it's the future. It's not going to be just like it is right now. And whatever we've learned right now, the future is that much better for the last 2 minutes. You make your own future. And it's not sitting there waiting for your ship to come in. You know what I mean? Your ship ain't going to come in. You have to make your ship happen. And then it can show up. Okay? So, yes?
Isn't it true that we try to live in the here and now, but some of us may be wanting to be influenced by the past, good or bad. And some people who live in the now may want to be influenced by the future they wish to create. So there's an aspect, perhaps, where the now is not just the here and now, but it's the now thinking of the future, or it's the now reliving the past.
If that's going on, you're coming from here, not here.
But
Because
in order-
God is pure love, and God is all there is. So you can want whatever you want, but when you agree with God, then it's going to happen.
But as we climb the steps towards heaven, would it not be beneficial to think of the here and now with the idea of the next step up, as opposed to, dragging the lower vibrations up with you, so that, like, you erase the lower vibration?
Right.
So if you look at the trifactor of past, now, and future, thinking of the here and now with the idea of the future you wish to create might be possible?
Well, from my understanding and my experience, and everything I'm talking about is basically my experience and learning, thank you to Cayce, learning from him. I don't want to hang on to the past, because that's going to keep me tethered to the old world. No matter how good or how bad it was. And that's tomorrow, we're going to do some releasing, so that kind of thing. When you still have emotional ties to the past, you're not free to ascend.
Correct.
Okay, so, and every morning I just say, God, I call myself God employed. It works a lot better than me trying to figure out what's going to happen that day. And I'll wake up that morning, I write, which you figured that out. I have a couple columns I write every month, and okay, God, what am I supposed to be doing today? Download. This is the article that you write today. That's what I do today. And guess what? The rest of the household things still get done. But I do what God wants me to do first, and the rest comes to take care of itself. And being a workaholic overachiever, because that's how I stuffed my feelings for years, I'm learning to pace myself and go slower and not put myself under stress, not do it all in one day. And to get here, I had a huge victory. I sorted it out, paced myself of when I was going to put these pages together. What I was going to say was another day. And I paced it out. I packed part of it one day. So when the fellow we didn't drive here. The fellow brought us. I was calm and collected. I wasn't stressed, and we were ready to go. Everything was in order, and it all got done. If I'm doing God's will, the rest takes care of itself. I don't have to plan my future. I never planned to be up here doing this kind of thing or writing books. I've written 11 books at this point. I never planned to be on the radio. I had 2 radio shows. They're both on the internet. I have 195 videos on YouTube. I never knew I didn't even know how to do a computer. To learn computers, I bought a Brother word processor to teach me how to do word processing, and then advanced myself to a real computer. I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. God brought it to me at the right time. I don't have to plan my future. I don't have any goals. And because my mother had my goals, excuse me, my husband had my goals, and that's another story. My boss had my goals, and now God takes care of that. It works much better. Goals limit you. God doesn't limit you. Before I got into my spiritual path, I was a teacher and I taught music. I have a resume today. It's embarrassing. If you were to find out what the things that God has had me accomplish, it blows my mind that I did that and got it done. It took 25 years to write this book, Paradigm Busters. This is the details of what we're talking about here. If you really want to know how to put your life in a spiritual way and get rid of all the barriers that you've built, because it comes from here, our past, this will show you. And it also has a chapter on holistic health. So that this takes you through all the steps that will sequentially put you into the place that we're talking about up here. What? Yeah. Well, God did. Archangel Michael came in each time and told me. And there was 2 years where I didn't write for a while. And I said, what's going on? And they said, well, you're still growing into what that's going to be about. Okay, so I recommend that you go home and make a list. And guess what? As you make your list and you release your demands to God, humbly remove my shortcomings or whatever they are, fear or whatever your anger is, and then replace it with love and grace. I was told in meditation that when you release something, it leaves a void. Nature abhors a void. You have to replace it with something you want, or you're going to have to release it, and then you have to release it until that gets to be routine. So if you replace it with love and grace, that's what you want. And you don't have to keep doing it over and over, expecting different things. You just get, and so you don't have to live in the past. You don't have to live in those things. You can release them, give them to God. Now that doesn't mean they're just going to go like that. In my experience, they usually come back about 3 times to make sure I'm on track, I guess. And so the first time is kind of tough because you're going against your habits. You're going against your old beliefs that don't work anymore anyway. Your old belief system's mine anyway. And I had to change routines, change friendships, change all parts of my life. It's not a real easy thing to do. So when it comes up again, I recognize, okay, here we go. I have a saying, okay, God, I need more faith for this one. Here we go again. and so I go through it again with faith. And then by the 3rd time, usually it's more graceful. I see how the dynamics are working, and I know what it's about, and I handle it appropriately. Can you believe that? Surprises me. So on the back side is even a better chart for getting rid of the barriers. These things down here are the barriers stopping your connection to God. Now it says review of fears. Here's the basis of our problems. And we have been conditioned in fear. And we are outgrowing fear. We're the little kid in the dark room, and mommy comes on and puts on the light. So how do you get rid of your fears? Well, in this case, fold your sheet. So column 1 is showing. And it's for column 2 to show up. And column 3 to show up. And turn those pages under, so just column 1 is, and you list your fears. And in my case, because of my parents going through the Great Depression, fear of financial insecurity, that was huge for me. So fear was a huge one. So why do I have this fear today? So first of all, you list the whole column down. It took me a while. When I was told to do that, it didn't make sense. But like you were saying, later you figure out, oh, that's why you do it. I finally got the answer. So you list all in column 1. You list column 2. Why do you have that fear? Well, in my case, this is a family way of thinking. I mean, that's just how they handled life. You know, they were always in fear of finances. And you didn't. One of my stories is I never had an allowance like all the other kids. And if you went on a vacation in the neighborhood and there was a special kind of keychain the kids liked at that time. Now, I'm talking about the 40s. And it was a little puzzle keychain. It cost 25 cents. Well, I didn't have any money. I was able, I don't know where we used to turn in bottles and cans I must have turned in some bottles or cans, so I had 25 cents. We went on a vacation. And the souvenir was to be my reward for the vacation. And I came home with the 25 cents. fear of spending money. I didn't buy the souvenir. I didn't buy the keychain. So today I know how to treat myself better. So when you get to the third column, this is a really telling column. And you check off the ones you fear is causing you trouble. And is it your self-esteem? Well, of course, if I had the money instead of the keychain, I thought I was a better person. I hadn't spent the money, right? Okay, personal relationships. Because of my finances and whatever in my life, my mother had bought me a really nice dress. I was in high school at the time. It was a real gem because that's not how I had very few clothes, okay? My closet was, you might call, empty. And she bought me this nice dress for Easter. I was on a band trip, and we went to this all-state orchestra, and I was in orchestra, and there was to be a fancy dance, so all the people in the orchestra could blend and mix and so forth, and I was going to wear my new dress. And this girl came along, and she liked me. She saw the dress. It was really cute. She says, "Can I wear that to the dance?" Sure. And I let her wear the dress, and I went my typical ugly school clothes. And in those days they jitterbugged. And she's being thrown in the air and ripped the arm and ruined the dress, and I never did get to wear it. I thought she would be a friend if I loaned her the dress. She never talked to me. She never even said, "I'm sorry I ripped your dress." You know, but I wanted a friend so bad, I gave up my dress thinking that would be a fear of friendship. Wanting somebody in my life lonely, fear of being lonely. So the next one, material, well that's obvious in my life, just check that one off. Emotional. I didn't know what an emotion was in those days. I was a walking zombie. I did what I was told. Very good, because if you didn't, there was a price to pay. So I was zoned out, I guess you'd say. I was the walking dead is how I call it, literally. In fact, at one point I was dying because of all of this. Acceptance of sex relations. Well, I'll be honest, I married a sex addict. Sexual abuse was big in the family, okay? Like attracts like. When I met this guy in college, he's going to be a teacher. Aren't teachers wonderful people? I'm going to marry a teacher. Well, I didn't know he was a sex addict until we've been married a while. That's another story. Hidden sex relations. Well, definitely you don't go telling the neighbors that you're married to a sex addict. So very hidden, believe me. I won't go into stories about that one. Social ambitions, well, that's why I wanted to give a little address to that gal. I'm the social outcast. I don't have any friends. I'm first chair flute. I get excellence in solo performances. I soloed with the symphony. I'm valedictorian, but I don't have any friends. Well, that's where I was. Security, none, zilch. If your parents fight every night, they're not there for you. I used to have nightmares about that I never could find my home. My mom would send me to the grocery store for a loaf of bread. In those days, you could actually buy a loaf of bread for 5 cents. And so I'm standing, the nightmare is I'm standing at the head of the street, looking down the street, and I don't have a house. No security. And, well, sexual, we talked about that. So the point is, every check you put in that box is you're giving away your power. That's real telling. So guess what? I had to learn how not to give away my power and get self-esteem so I didn't give away my power. If I'm happy with me, and of course we make our own happiness, if I'm happy with me, what you do does not affect me. All right? I can be true to myself, thank you. And what you want to do is your choice. Of course, that didn't work in domestic violence, but anyway. In a healthy relationship, it does. Okay, so the real telling is column 4. Where have I been selfish? In my case, a lot of people are coming from selfishness to build their ego or look good or be successful or whatever. In my case, I could put in, where have I been in survival? And in my case, I know from my past lives, I know where that came from today. Where that lack of survival in my life. I'm trying to survive, man. I don't have a home, I don't have parents, I don't have friends, I don't have clothes, I don't have money. I'm trying to survive. That's where I came from. Okay, next one. Where have I been dishonest? What I found out in that original past life where all this basically started was I didn't know there was a God. I'm an orphan in a cave, way back in cave days, barely finding berries to eat, barely finding pieces of wood to stay warm and have a fire. I barely had any clothing, no animals or anybody's around. I am all by myself. There I am in survival. That's where my death wish came from. I attracted all this through a death wish. I want to be off the face of the earth from this past life. What's that little girl going to do? She might as well just leave, right? I have been through I've had 4 domestic violent lifetimes with the same man, and I was told, this lifetime you will heal it. I did. And all these things come from where we don't even realize. And as you peel the onion, you've probably heard people mention that, as you peel the onion, more will be revealed. And it's taken me 39 years to discover that little girl in that cave and where a lot of this came from. Besides how it came through the different past lives and played out in this life, because I tried suicide in this life. And I don't have to do that today. I can turn to God, and no matter what situation I have, and God will take care of me. But that little girl way back in the cave days didn't know that. Had no way to find out. So you learn a lot about yourself through this chart. Now you can use this chart instead of just for fear. You can also, instead of fear, cross that out, make your own chart, and put in resentment and do the same thing and find out where are you playing a victim in resentments. And you can also find out where are you doing in sex harm. And it doesn't, like in my case, it was sex addiction in the family. But your motivations can be just as deadly as the act, or your thoughts can be just as deadly. So to take a look at that, because what you send out, what you project, take a look at it, because it's going to get you an hour later. So in my case, I say, okay, God, here we go again. What do I still need to know? That's during my prayers at night, once in a while, I'm still, okay, God, where'd that come from? I need to know the answer to that one. So I'm still a work in progress. And we never really get to the end, but believe me, because when I have released these things that I've identified, and my motivation, my sponsor one time, my friend, she was saying, I was trying to do the right thing. Okay, I'm learning trying to do the right thing. And she says, what's your motivation? So I told her. She says, what's your motivation below that one? And she got me, because I was fooling myself thinking I was doing the right thing, but it wasn't the right thing. So if you have any questions or concerns, I had to learn I'm responsible for my life. And what is out there is what I've created. And I created all you lovely people today. So thank you for coming. And I'm so glad to be able to say that all my books are based in Edgar Cayce. They all have quotes, and a great big quote about fear in the Paradigm Buster book. As I was working on that one, I asked this lady to give me a testimonial, and for my book, it's in there. And she channels Matthew from the Bible. And she said, Matthew would like to add some more information to your book about fear. So he said, Fear is like a black blanket which covers up the light. And our job is to poke through that black blanket so the light can come through, and gradually the light will be dispelled. So we can all poke through our blankets and get rid of our fear and live, and the planet is moved into the new age, and we can match it and move on with the planet. And if you choose to do the work, you will be part of the new root race. So, any questions? I can't answer all the questions at once. Well,
You gave us a lot to think about.
I
Yeah.
think some 12 steps that come through.
Your first two names.
you did.
Channels of energy.
Yeah.
I looked for the, I don't know, after reading several different
Just your first name.
theories and philosophies, pretty soon you start to see one, you know.
What I've discovered is there's a lot of ways to express this.
Yes.
And in my case, I was on a spiritual path for certain recoveries. And I said, well, how do other people do recovery in spiritual ways? And I found that no matter, I have been in spiritual churches, I have been in other kinds of organizations that are spiritual. Cayce is very basic. And other organizations, actually, I don't know, I'm not trying to criticize or anything, but they don't take it quite as, for me it was literally a life or death situation. So I probably take it more seriously than some people did, literally, because the doctor said I was dying. My body told me I was dying. My soul was barely flaming inside, and that's when my body says, you're dying. That's not going on today. Thank you. So yeah, we're all saying the same. The truth is the truth. And what you relate with might not be the same as what he relates with, because what the difference is, we all have different filters. And your childhood, your growing up. Now, he was raised in a Beaver Cleaver family. Can you imagine that?
Unicorn.
So instead of going from this disastrous situation, I ended up in a relationship of unconditional love. We can all make our lives better. And it's what you do will make your life better. So go home and see what you can do to make just always respond in love, whatever the situation is. It sounds kind of corny maybe, but it works. Even when it's sad situations. My son has not talked to me for 7 years, but I know it's his path. I know he's learning the lessons he needs, and I have to let him grow up on his terms. I can't save him. That was one of my problems. I tried to save my mother. I tried to save my husband. I was trying to save my son from his father was brutal to him. So I don't have to feel guilty about it. It was his path, and he chose it, and it's the life he needs to live. I have to live and let him have his life. So whatever's going on, send love to it. Yes?
Years ago, there was a book, does everybody remember The Prophet?
Yes,
K.L. Right. There was a line in there that I have said over and over to friends in trouble, and that is, our children come through us, not from us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, right. I love that.
Tomorrow at 4, I will be leading you through a meditation to release emotional ties to your past. You cannot, and it's cleaning out the chakras. It's a chakra cleaning. I've done it a long time ago before. I've done it before. We have to cut every connection to the past to move up and ascend. If you're still hanging on to something from the past, good or bad, there's nothing wrong with the good things, but not to live because of them. There's a difference to be in the world and not of it. That's what we're talking about. And so if you're still, I've done that clearing 6 times. My dear friend died recently, and she would do this clearing. And each time the onion peeled, you wouldn't believe attachments I had. I even had an emotional attachment to a bank, I found out, that I had to let go of from years back. So you don't know sometimes what your attachments even are. So clean it out, clean out whatever you've got to clean out and enjoy what's coming. Is the best is yet to come, and enjoy it.
Thank you, Marilyn.